Now, Valero isn't the only refinery that has plans to ship in crude by rail. Actually, we think all 5 of them are planning to do that. So multiply all of this by 5, and you have a major mess on your hands in the Bay Area. And Andre is here tonight to give you a little idea how all of this is linked together.
So to try to put some context around all of this, first of all, I've spent almost my entire life in the city of Richmond. I just moved here to Benicia last May, but my mother had lived here, since like the 1980s, and my father had lived here as well. So I'm not unfamiliar with Benicia, but it was quite a surprise when I got here, and I work for Communities for a Better Environment. I'm the Richmond organizer, so we're on the front lines and have been on the front lines for 30 years in Richmond dealing with refinery-related issues, whether it's emissions, whether it's monitoring, the whole plethora of issues that are involved. But then I found out that Valero was trying to do this crude by rail with a mitigated negative declaration. And I used to be on the Richmond Planning Commission until I moved up here. And what I was astounded. I said, oh, how could they even think about that? But somebody thought about it. Somebody in the planning department said, well, we'll go with your thoughts. And that's what was put in front of the Planning Commission. Well, fortunately, because of people like Marilyn and Jan and others, Roger, who have really been working here in this community for many years, they were able to fill the council chambers with Benicians, and the Planning Commission clearly got the message that that was not the way to go. And so that kind of action by the people are what the people who are going to make the decisions are going to need to hear. In Richmond, we were so frustrated with basically 90 years of corporate domination that over the last 10 years, we have been working at the grassroots level, running candidates for city council, because it's not just about Chevron. It's about a perspective, it's about a worldview, it's about a political view, that if you think what the big oil companies are telling you is the truth and you're willing to go down that path, then either you don't have critical thinking or you're corrupt. And that's what we had to deal with in Richmond, was that. And so we decided to get rid of the corruption. And so we've been running candidates, and it's touched on a whole range of issues. And I say that because what we've discovered is that in the community of Rodeo Crockett, where they have the Phillips 66 project, once again, government did not serve the community well. The puppet advisory committees they have there did not serve the community well. And when the people finally found out what Phillips 66 was really up to and the risks that that posed to their community, now some of them are here. Say hi, Nancy. Hi. And then similarly, right around the same time, people in Pittsburgh started finding out about something called Westpac. And they didn't know whether it was west, like out west, or whether it was west, like West Parker, or Fest Parker. But they just, they didn't know what it was, never heard about it. And when they found out that they were talking about bringing in this Bakken crude and the tar sands literally behind people's houses, behind parks, behind schools, in what used to be a PG&E power plant, they got, righteously upset. And so they started organizing. So what's going on in all these communities is organizing, reaching out neighbor to neighbor, and more importantly, now we're reaching out to each other. We have Liana Monterrey and George Monterrey from Pittsburgh over here, who've been. And so to give you a picture of what's happened, was they were trying to do the same thing in Pittsburgh that they were doing out here, trying to ram it through real quiet and real nice. And but then the community stood up. They got over 2,500 signatures within a couple of months, and that can sway an election in Pittsburgh. So guess what happened? the Pittsburgh City Council got the wisdom, and they decided to recirculate the EIR to deal with some of the questions that were raised by the community members. It also helped that the same concerns were put into a letter by the Attorney General Kamala Harris. So that kind of got them the religion over there. And then in Contra Costa County, because it's the County Board of Supervisors, not the City Council, that makes the decisions about the Phillips 66 project, it went to the Planning Commission, which was stacked with building trades members, as well as the guy who used to be the plant manager for Phillips 66. He is currently a Contra Costa Planning Commission. He had to recuse himself, but the rest of it was stacked, unanimous vote. They approved the EIR. So our organization, Communities for a Better Environment, as well as the Rodeo Crockett Citizens.
Crockett Rodeo United to Defend the Environment, otherwise known as CRUDE Crude.
That's right. Very creative out there as well. So they got together and appealed to the County Board of Supervisors, and even though they shut down the refinery and packed it with over 150 refinery workers, to our about 40 people we had there, who testified, of course, they were screaming jobs, and we were saying public health and safety. The County Board of Supervisors chose to extend their hearing until, I believe it's April 1st, to do more analysis, and the Kamala Harris letter also helped. So what's happening is there's a movement, a groundswell of people just like yourselves in all these communities, neighbors who don't want to see Lac Megantic happen in their backyards. And so the key to all of this is the big oil companies have big money. They buy governments. They own governments. But here in our communities, we have a chance to stand up. And because our democracy is close, it's person to person. The mayor is here this evening, hopefully expanding her education as well. And hopefully you saw the op-ed Elizabeth Patterson had in the Chronicle, what was it, last week? Yeah, so raising concerns and questions about this that are going to be critical in the decision-making process. Now, the EIR, all EIRs are generally done by consultants paid for by industry but hired by the local governments. And so that's supposed to give the appearance of neutrality. But almost every consultant who writes these EIRs at one point used to work for the industry. So they're never really going to put in negative commentary. They're going to try to frame everything the way the industry wants it. But one of the things that's really been powerful here in Benicia is because of all these disasters, the evidence is clear. This stuff is too dangerous for anybody's community. And not just Benicia, but the whole Bay Area. Now, a couple other things that are tying us together is that the Bay Area Air Quality Management District is planning a regional emissions rule. And once again, the Air District staff is caving to industry pressure. And so we, as a community, as people, have to put pressure on the elected board members who hire the staff and say, look, if your staff is not doing our will, then you need to get rid of your staff and get some people who will reflect the needs of the community here in the Bay Area. And then finally, one of the things that Lac Megantic has finally shined the light on, that it's not just Benicia or Martinez or Pittsburgh or Rodeo or Richmond. Because this stuff is coming on rail, everybody on the pathway is at risk. And you're going to hear from Damien from Davis, because they're right up the road. But think about Sassoon Marsh. You know, what happens if those tar sands fall in there? This stuff will be there for years. It's so thick, they can't get it out. Lac Megantic, we learned from Marilene Savat, was that they are rebuilding the rail tracks so they can run the trains through, even though the land is so contaminated they can't rebuild the downtown. So they're going to relocate the people and force their neighbors to have to move so that these people can be moved in. Think about that as a future for this community. I don't think that's the kind of vision that the people of Benicia have, and I think that when people get educated about this, finally they're going to say, stop crude by rail. Thank you.